Look at the raw, jagged intensity of the field in that final frame of the last episode, that swirling, fragmented vortex of potential that we left you in. It was a chaotic disintegration, a visual scream of an identity tearing itself apart. It feels like a violent end, doesn't it? But now, shift your gaze. Look past that frantic energy to the center of this new frame. Look at this stillness. It is not the silence of a vacuum, but the absolute, heavy quiet of a system that has finally stopped fighting its own evolution. This is not where you have been. This is where you must go. This transition from the scream of the disintegrating ego to the absolute resonant stillness of the heart is the single most important pivot point in the architecture of your quantum soul. You are no longer watching the collapse. You are now witnessing the birth of the anchor.
To understand the stillness, you must first recognize the architecture of the collapse. The entity on the left of your field, which represents the entangled participant. This is the version of you that is biologically and energetically locked into a reactive feedback loop with the external world. In this state, you are not an architect, you are an antenna, vibrating in frantic, erratic harmony with every stressor, social cue, and environmental shift in your vicinity. Because your internal boundaries are porous, the emotions and chaos of others do not just influence you, they effectively possess your nervous system, triggering a constant state of fight or flight that leaves you physically drained and mentally fragmented. You are quite literally being consumed by the events you are attempting to navigate. This entanglement is a perpetual debt. You are spending your internal energy to process external noise that has no relevance to your core purpose. Every time you react to a social slight, every time you internalize the panic of a high-pressure environment, and every time you seek validation through the lens of external opinion, you are leaking precious life force. This is why you feel perpetually exhausted, even when you have not exerted significant physical effort. You are not tired from doing, you are tired from being used by the environment. The entangled participant is a system that has sacrificed its sovereignty for the sake of social and emotional fitting in, and the cost of that compliance is the slow degradation of your own structural integrity. The trap of the entangled participant is the illusion that reactivity is a form of engagement. You convince yourself that by being sensitive to the environment, by feeling everything, responding to every provocation, and staying hyper-attuned to the shifting moods of those around you, you are somehow more aware or more connected. This is a total deception. True connection requires a stable reference point. You cannot connect with the fundamental reality of the world when you are busy bouncing off the walls of its emotional chaos. Your reactivity is not awareness, it is a lack of control. It is the signature of a system that has forgotten its own center and has instead become an extension of the system it is supposed to be transcending. To see yourself as the entangled participant is to see a system in decline. Look at the jagged, uneven lines of energy on the left side of the image. Notice how they never form a closed circuit. That is the visual anatomy of your exhaustion. Energy enters, is distorted, and then leaks out in a wasted entropic spill. You are spending your days in a state of high arousal and low utility. You are feeling the weight of the world, but you are not doing anything with it. You are merely being crushed by it. This is the caterpillar's final desperate attempt to survive by conforming to the noise, and it is a path that leads only to total system failure. We are identifying this state not to judge you, but to define the boundary you must cross. You must realize that the entangled participant is not a personality trait, it is a biological failure to maintain a proprietary frequency. As long as you remain entangled, you are a passenger in your own life, subject to the whims of the environment's currents. The stillness on the right side of the image, the coherence we are moving toward, is the only place where you can begin to function as an autonomous architect. You must choose between the comfort of being a reactive participant and the necessity of becoming a resonant master. Are you ready to admit that your reactivity is not your strength, but the very chain that is preventing your emergence?
The transition from the entangled participant to the architect of your own reality hinges on your grasp of the quantum observer effect, the fundamental principle that the act of observation is not a passive reception of data, but an active intervention in the state of the phenomenon. When you observe your own internal state with reactivity, you are effectively collapsing the wave function into the very noise, anxiety, and turbulence you are attempting to escape. By judging, fearing, or resisting your thoughts, you're providing the energy that keeps them solidified. However, when you pivot to a state of absolute detached neutrality, you shift the observation from an emotional intervention to a structural one. Neutrality is not coldness, it is the most potent form of influence you possess. In the quantum model, an unobserved particle exists in a state of all potentials. It only assumes a definite state when it is measured by an observer. Your consciousness acts as that measurement tool. When you observe your emotions through the lens of neutrality, you stop measuring them as threats or failures. By withholding your emotional engagement, you remove the energy required for those states to maintain their rigid, entropic form. Consequently, the turbulent particles of your reactive mind begin to dissolve because they are no longer being measured into existence by your fear. You're essentially starving the noise of the attention it needs to remain real. Neutrality is the act of letting go of the need for the phenomenon to be anything other than what it is, which paradoxically forces the phenomenon to reorganize itself into something more coherent. This is the shift from being a subject to being a master. As the observer, you are the highest order intelligence in your personal system. When you watch your thoughts, your reactions, and your physical impulses with this detached neutrality, you are imposing an order on your own reality. You are saying, I am the space in which this exists, but I am not the phenomenon itself. This stance creates a vacuum of interference. Without your habitual reactivity to sustain them, the old entropic neural pathways begin to decay, and the imaginal cells, your latent higher-order potential, find the silence they need to begin constructing the new architecture. Your neutrality is the foundation upon which your sovereignty is built. To practice this, you must learn to view your own internal life as if you were looking at a complex 3D simulation. When the anger or the panic spikes, do not jump into the simulation to fix it. Remain in the observer's seat. See the spike, note its trajectory, observe the physical sensations it produces in your body, and maintain your position as the one who is watching. You will find that the moment you withdraw your identification from the sensation, it loses its ability to hijack your nervous system. The sensation becomes a piece of data, not a directive. You are not suppressing it, you are simply refusing to let it be the observer that defines your reality. This is the power of the architect. You influence the world not by wrestling with it, but by deciding which potentials you are willing to collapse into reality. By maintaining a neutral, high-frequency observation, you are essentially telling the system of the world that you will no longer tolerate the entropic noise of the past. You are signaling that you are only interested in observing and therefore stabilizing the signals of higher-order purpose. As you master this, you will notice that your environment begins to change. The noise around you becomes less invasive because you are no longer vibrating in a way that observes and sustains it. You are becoming a presence that effectively deletes discord simply by refusing to grant it the energy of your observation. How has your perception of difficulty changed now that you realize you are the observer who determines whether a challenge remains a threat or becomes an opportunity for reconfiguration? In the architecture of your metamorphosis, emotional neutrality is not a psychological choice, it is a fundamental law of physics. When you move into this state, you are transitioning from a reactive field to a shielded field. People often mistake not caring for a lack of empathy, a sign of weakness, or an indication of emotional detachment. This is the ego's defense mechanism speaking. In reality, what you are practicing is frequency insulation. Look at watermarked image 18352976844348 again. The gear-like structures in the center, the coherence processor, represent the mechanism of your neutrality.
They act as electromagnetic filters that do not block the incoming energy from the entropic plasma field, the chaos on the left, but rather transmute it. When you achieve this state of neutrality, you are effectively shifting your resonant frequency beyond the reach of external noise. Think of this like the physics of a noise-canceling wave. By maintaining a state of absolute calm center, you are generating an internal frequency that perfectly negates the incoming erratic signals of your environment. You are not caring less, you are allowing less interference to penetrate your core. Because you are no longer vibrating at the same frequency as the discord literally cannot stick to your architecture. It passes through you, or is processed by your coherence filters, and is refined into the luminous light you see on the right side of the image. This is why this state is one of high-frequency stability. When you react, you drop your frequency to match the chaos, you enter the fray, you absorb the impact, and you become part of the turbulence. Neutrality allows you to remain above the reaction, keeping your resonance high and your structure intact. This is the difference between a glass pane that shatters when struck and a fluid surface that ripples and instantly returns to stillness. By not caring about the drama of the environment, by refusing to assign it the importance your ego demands, you are protecting the integrity of your new emergent wings. You are keeping your energy focused entirely on the construction of the quantum soul. Furthermore, this neutrality is the ultimate power move of the sovereign architect. When you are indifferent to the provocation, the provocateur loses their leverage over your system. You become an impassable object in a field of entropic forces. External events, which were previously directives that forced you to change your shape, now become mere data points that you process and dismiss. You are no longer being built by the outside world. You are building yourself from within. You are establishing a baseline of peace that is non-negotiable, a standard of frequency that the world must now rise to meet if it wishes to interact with you. As you navigate the remainder of this episode, identify one area of your life where you are currently caring too much, where you are allowing the turbulence to dictate your internal state. Apply the physics of neutrality to it. Do not suppress the emotion, simply observe it as an incoming signal that you have the power to filter. You will find that as soon as you stop identifying with the turbulence, the energy it held in is freed up to fuel your own expansion. Neutrality is the quiet room you build inside the storm. It is where your new self is being assembled, away from the prying eyes and entropic hooks of your past. Does viewing neutrality as a physical filter rather than a moral or emotional choice make it easier to maintain your calm in the face of conflict?
The transition into the sovereign state is best illustrated by the parable of Sarah at the marketplace, a narrative that serves as the final practical proof of your metamorphosis. Imagine a woman standing in the center of a chaotic, high-entropy bazaar. Merchants are shouting, prices are fluctuating, and the air is thick with the friction of desperate commerce. The crowd, the entangled participants, are running headlong into the fray, their identities caught in the tug-of-war of gain and loss. They are the storm, they are the turbulence, they are physically and emotionally drained because they have surrendered their internal sovereignty to the shifting winds of the market. Sarah stands in the same space, but she is fundamentally different. She observes the chaos with absolute clinical clarity, yet she remains untouched by its magnetism. She is not aloof, she is present. She is not detached, she is protected. When a merchant shouts, she does not internalize the urgency. When a trade collapses, she does not feel the loss. She recognizes that the marketplace, the system of the world, is just a projection of the entropic noise of the participants. By maintaining her internal center, she acts as a stationary point in a shifting sea. Her silence is not a void, it is a weight that stabilizes the space around her. She witnesses the storm, but she refuses to become the storm. This Sarah archetype is the blueprint for your new quantum soul identity. You must understand that you are not in the marketplace to participate in the chaos. You are in the marketplace to anchor the order.
When you witness the storm in your own life, the interpersonal conflicts, the professional anxieties, the unpredictable shifts in your environment, you must emulate Sarah. You must maintain the coherence of your internal field. You are witnessing the oscillation of the environment, but you are not allowing that oscillation to override your own rhythm. The moment you enter the struggle, you lose your sovereignty. The moment you observe the struggle, you command the space. This is the ultimate test of your metamorphosis. To be sovereign is to recognize that your nervous system is no longer a slave to external input. You have built the filters, the gears you saw in the coherence processor to handle the entropy. Now you must choose to deploy them. In every situation where you feel the urge to react, to defend, or to join in the collective panic, you must pause and locate your inner Sarah. You are the architect who has built a cathedral of calm within yourself. You are the only one who can grant the storm permission to disturb you. As we move toward the final conclusion of this series, let the Sarah archetype be your compass. You are moving toward a life where external events, no matter how chaotic, lose their power to dictate your frequency. You are becoming a vessel of high-order intelligence, a presence that brings stability simply by existing. You are the witness of the marketplace, the architect of your own internal peace, and the one who has finally, irrevocably, stepped out of the path of the storm. As you look at the life you are living today, where are the markets, where are the merchants, and are you standing as the storm, or are you standing as Sarah?
To apply the observer perspective to your own internal identity collapse, you must move from the role of the victim of dissolution to the role of the technician of transition. When your old identity begins to fall away, the ego will flood your system with adrenaline, fear, and a sense of losing control. This is not a malfunction, it is the friction of shedding an obsolete frequency. By applying the observer perspective, you treat this panic as objective data. Instead of being scared, you observe that a sensation of fear is moving through the nervous system. This subtle shift in syntax is the key to maintaining your stability. You are no longer the fear, you are the space in which the fear exists. Recalibration requires you to view your identity as a modular architecture rather than a monolithic structure. During the dissolution, you are essentially unplugging the legacy circuits of your caterpillar self. As these circuits power down, you will experience lulls in motivation, identity confusion, or a feeling of nothingness. Apply the observer perspective here by recognizing that this void is a necessary prerequisite for the new installation. You are not lost, you are defragmented. By observing this state with neutrality, you prevent the ego from frantically attempting to reconnect the old, dysfunctional circuits. You stay in the neutral space, allowing the system to idle while the new, higher-order pathways take form. To master this, implement a daily calibration audit. At the start of the day, assume the position of the architect. Review your internal state. Identify which parts of your old identity are still demanding attention and which parts have successfully dissolved. If you feel the pull toward old habits, a desire for validation, a tendency to react to small stressors, a need to define your role in the market, label these as legacy processes. Then, consciously deactivate them. Do not judge them, simply log them as obsolete code that no longer serves the architecture of the quantum soul. This exercise reinforces the boundary between your sovereign observer and the entropic noise of your past. As you witness your own collapse, look for the systemic markers of the new self. You will notice moments of profound, unbidden clarity, or instances where you respond to a crisis with unexpected calm. These are not coincidences. These are the first signs of the new operating system coming online. When you observe these markers, do not try to amplify them with egoic pride. Simply note them as functional successes. By tracking these markers from a place of detached observation, you provide the feedback loop that the system needs to prioritize the growth of your new identity. You are training your nervous system to prefer the resonance of the quantum soul over the dissonance of the caterpillar. Ultimately, this recalibration is about trusting the law of conservation of energy. You are not losing yourself, you are reallocating the energy of that self into a more efficient, flight-capable configuration.
The identity collapse is the ultimate investment. You are liquidating a stagnant asset to purchase a higher frequency future. By staying in the observer seat, you turn a period of potential suffering into a period of strategic growth. You are watching the old structure fade so that you can consciously witness the emergence of the new. How does observing the death of your old habits change your feelings about the uncertainty that comes with the birth of your new identity?
To practice real-time detachment, you must treat your nervous system like an instrument you are calibrating. When a stressful trigger occurs, a sudden crisis, an aggressive email, or an unexpected social conflict, your ego's immediate reflex is to merge with the event, creating a singular identity between you and the problem. The practice of detachment is the deliberate act of decoupling your consciousness from that event. You do this through a three-step mental exercise: the pulse, the pivot, and the projection. Step 1. The pulse, the detection. The moment you feel the spike of cortisol or the tightening in your chest, stop. Do not move, do not speak, and do not act. Acknowledge the physical sensation as a system alert. Tell yourself, this is a spike in my field. You are not labeling the event as bad or the end of the world. You are observing the electrical signal moving through your body. By identifying the sensation as a localized pulse rather than a global catastrophe, you prevent the emotion from cascading into a full-blown identity crisis. Step 2. The pivot, the observer shift. Imagine that your consciousness is a point of light located a few inches behind your eyes. Mentally step back into this position. From this vantage point, look at your situation as if you were a technician watching a live feed of an experiment. Ask yourself, how would the architect of my life handle this? This movement from participant to observer is the pivot. It breaks the entanglement because you are no longer the one experiencing the stress, you are the one observing the phenomenon of stress. The stress remains, but you are no longer its host. Step 3. The projection, the frequency override. Now, instead of focusing your energy on the external trigger, project a state of absolute neutral stability from your center. Do not try to fight the trigger, simply fill the space around it with your own frequency. Visualize your coherence processor, the gears in the image, working to transmute the chaotic input. Consciously hold the thought, this is data, not a directive. By doing this, you are effectively creating a buffer zone where the stress cannot penetrate. You are effectively cooling down the signal before it reaches your core. This exercise is not a temporary distraction, it is a tactical reconfiguration of your reality. Every time you successfully decouple from a trigger, you are strengthening the neural pathway of the sovereign observer. You are proving to your biology that you do not require a crisis to function, and that you are perfectly capable of maintaining order in a high-entropy environment. Over time, the triggers that once shattered your equilibrium will lose their charge. They will become static, harmless, low-frequency noise that passes through your field without leaving a trace. This is the ultimate form of self-governance. When you can detach in real time, you have effectively immunized yourself against the chaos of the marketplace. You are the architect who has installed a master kill switch for unnecessary drama. The next time a crisis hits, use this process. Feel the pulse, initiate the pivot, and project your stability. Witness how the environment, which previously seemed so powerful, suddenly loses its grip on your reality. Are you ready to test this exercise against the next stressor that enters your path?
The integrity field is the final structural outcome of your commitment to the sovereign observer. Look at the right side of watermarked image 1835326974834 again. The luminous symmetrical geometry is not merely a visual representation of peace, it is a high-frequency containment field. When you consistently practice the pivot and maintain your neutrality, you are not just filtering incoming noise, you are actively constructing a constructive interference. This field operates on the principle of constructive interference. By sustaining a steady, high-order internal frequency, you create a zone of exclusion where entropic, low-frequency patterns cannot establish a foothold. Your internal geometry becomes so coherent and so rigidly defined by your purpose that the chaotic influence of the marketplace literally lacks the connective tissue required to latch on to your energy. This protection is self-sustaining. The more you function from this centered observational state, the stronger the geometry becomes. It is a feedback loop of structural integrity. In the past, you were a soft, porous target, absorbing every emotional spillover and environmental stressor, which is why you were consistently drained. Now, you are a closed-loop system. The integrity field ensures that your vital energy is preserved exclusively for the maintenance of your new architecture. When you encounter high-entropy individuals or volatile situations, you will notice that their presence feels like background static that fades the moment it hits the edge of your field. You are no longer interacting with the world as a victim of its currents. You are interacting with it as a stable source of light. This field also dictates the quality of the external reality you attract. The law of resonance states that you do not attract what you want, you attract what you are. As your internal geometry becomes symmetrical and luminous, your environment must adjust to match the frequency of your field. People who thrive in chaos will find themselves naturally repelled by your presence, not because you're being aggressive, but because your stability is a direct confrontation to their discord. Conversely, you will begin to notice that individuals who resonate with higher-order logic and purpose are drawn to you. You are creating a gravity well of coherence. The integrity field is your sovereign boundary. It is the manifestation of the truth that you have finally stopped letting the world define your shape. Understand that maintaining this field is a conscious responsibility. If you allow your focus to drift back into the marketplace, if you start engaging in the gossip, the anxiety, or the reactionary survival games, you create a leak in your geometry. The integrity field is not static. It is a dynamic, living structure that requires your continued alignment. Every time you consciously choose to remain the observer in the face of a trigger, you add a layer of reinforcement to your shield. You are building something permanent, something that will eventually become your default state of existence. You are no longer just trying to be coherent, you are becoming coherence. As you step into the world with this understanding, recognize that you are the architect of your own atmosphere. You are walking inside a private, high-frequency sanctuary that you have built from the ruins of your caterpillar life. Nothing outside of this field can violate the integrity of the work you are doing unless you give it the permission to do so. The chaos is real, the marketplace is loud, and the storms will continue to rage. But you are no longer a participant in them. You are the source of a different order entirely. How does it feel to realize that your primary impact on the world is not what you do, but the sheer, unshakable frequency of what you are?
You have achieved the impossible. You have successfully navigated the dissolution, mastered the pivot point, and constructed the integrity field, a geometry of such perfect, luminous coherence that it stands as an oasis of order within the chaotic bazaar of the system of the world. You are now the Sarah of your own life, a sovereign presence who has learned to witness the storm without becoming the storm. But here, at the threshold of the next stage of your evolution, a critical cliffhanger emerges. You have built a fortress of stillness, but you are not a hermit. You are a living, breathing participant in a world that is, by its very design, volatile. What happens when your perfect, coherent geometry must interface with the jagged, entropic volatility of the people around you? What occurs when the marketplace, the colleagues, the family, the social structures that still operate on reactive, caterpillar logic demands that you vibrate at their frequency?
You have learned to protect your energy, but protection is only the first step. The true test of a quantum soul is not in how well you hide from the chaos, but in how you influence it without being absorbed by it. You are approaching the secret of the physics of untouchability. This is not a wall, it is a membrane. It is a sophisticated, high-frequency state of existence where you remain entirely permeable to the truth, but completely immune to the discord. In the next episode, we will dismantle the illusion that you must choose between isolation and entanglement. We will show you how to walk through the fire of human volatility and come out not just unburned, but having fundamentally altered the temperature of the room simply by the resonance of your presence. The cliffhanger is this: can a coherent field maintain its perfect symmetry when it is forced to occupy the same space as an entropic one? Or will the act of interaction inevitably force a compromise? You have built the wings of the butterfly, but you have yet to test them in the gale force winds of the human condition. As you stand in your stillness, observe the volatile forces circling your perimeter. Do not shrink from them. Do not prepare to fight them. Prepare instead to demonstrate that there is a frequency so stable, so fundamentally true to the laws of nature, that no amount of human drama can disrupt its pattern. The stillness is set. Now the real work of influence begins. Are you ready to see what happens when the quantum soul finally touches the world?
Remember, neutrality is not coldness, it is mastery. The observer does not reject the world, the observer simply refuses to be consumed by it. Find the center that holds and stay there. If you are ready to anchor your sovereign perspective, type "I witness the storm" in the comments below. Today, we mastered the view. In our next episode, The Physical Cost of Change, we will explore how this powerful shift manifests in your body, decoding the fatigue, the sensory overload, and the unique physical signals of your integration.